Okay, so Ali Flowers is joining us today from Klaviyo. She's going to share some fantastic information on how you can get the most out of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that sort of thing as well, via nurture campaigns and things like that. And we are also joined by Cami Pham, who is from Think Renegade, who is a fantastic marketer with lots and lots of experience with lots of different clients, but has a particular fantastic understanding of e-commerce. So we're really pleased to have her joining us today. And the way that today is going to work is that we are going to be recording this webinar. So this webinar will be recorded, and not only that, it will also be shared on YouTube. So if we are going a little bit fast, don't worry, just take it in your stride for the minute. You can rewatch it, you can pause, you can follow along later on. And a lot of people find that that's a really good way to take in this information. You will also be able to find the recording on the same place where you registered for this webinar. So when you go to Wix SEO, wix.com/SEO/learn/webinars, you can find the webinar and you can go to the page that will have the link. You will also find it on the Wix YouTube channel, and you can get lots of information there. We will also send you the YouTube link in your email. Our colleague Bar, who is in the admin session at the back, will be manning that for you, making sure that you've got all of those details. And then we are also going to be running Q&A. So one of the great things about being here live is that you can ask questions. So in our Q&A, at the bottom of the screen, you can enter your questions, and we have folks from our Wix team who work on our e-commerce tools who are there to answer your questions. We are also going to be curating sort of themes that we see across some of the questions to be discussing after the sort of bulk of the webinar finishes. So do stick around for that. And also, we thank you so much for joining us. We run these webinars regularly. So if you are interested in these webinars, or if you want to see some of the ones that we ran before, please visit the Wix SEO Learning Hub at Wix SEO, or wix.com/SEO/learn/webinars, lots of slashes there. And you can see all of those webinars there. So order of events, we've done the introductions. We'll get into some of these details now. So we've done the introductions and our housekeeping. So yes, it's being recorded. If anyone joins late, tell them that yes, it's being recorded. And first, we're going to hear from Cami Pham. She's going to share some fantastic insights on seasonality and great things that you can do to make your website and your campaigns really, really sing. We're also going to hear from Ali Flowers about nurturing your customers and how you can get some great results from building better relationships with your customers. And then I'm going to share some specific Wix examples that you can implement on your website pretty much today if you want to start getting some better impact from your seasonal campaigns as we go into the selling season. Finally, Morty is going to be coordinating the Q&A session. So he will be making sure that we've got some high value questions and answers from for you today, and that we're going to be able to get through those towards the end of the session. And with that said, I think we're going to hand over to Cami.
Hi everyone. Today,
Hello.
hello. I'm just gonna chat quickly about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and what we have learned from like last year, previous year, and also year to date, like, and what you should do. And yes, that. So 65% of US shoppers they actually start shopping way before Thanksgiving. We have a client who sell holiday items, and right now the best selling item is actually Christmas tree, like the top selling item. So it's so important right now. Every year, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, getting earlier and earlier. Roughly around early October, to compete with Amazon Prime. Like Walmart, Target, that all the big retailers, they actually start selling, start releasing the Black Friday Cyber Monday in early October. And by like mid-October, third week of October, everyone started releasing the early Black Friday deal because you want to get the money before everyone spend their holiday shopping budget. most likely by the end of early November, majority of people holiday shopping budget is already gone. So you want to start earlier than better. So the other day, my project manager actually forwarded me this ad on Instagram, and he asked me, like, "Are you kidding me? It's like, are we launching a Black Friday ad now?" Yeah, this is not an ad from last year from Black Friday Cyber Monday. It's an ad from like the 8th of September this year. And people were launching their Black Friday Cyber Monday offer earlier and earlier. October is the new November, and I have a feeling a lot of people are going to launch them Black Friday Cyber Monday deal by the end of September. That's why for us, for our client, what we do is that we actually try to get our Black Friday Cyber Monday asset done by mid or like the third week of September. And we're going to adjust the date based on how the industry, how everyone else is doing. Because one, we also don't want to launch way too early because that's going to be a 2 or 3 month sales. It's way too long. But we also don't want to launch it way too late because we're going to lose a lot of the market share as well. So I'm going to share with you some of the tips on how to optimize your email and advertising to prepare for Black Fridays. What is the biggest thing before Q4 hit? You want to build your audience before the rush. You want to get people to join your mailing list, do any collaboration giveaway with other brands that don't compete but share the same audience because you have vetted customer from other people. So that is a great way. Some of our clients also do gift guide with other brands that not compete as well. That way they can kind of cross promote each other. To build that audience now, that will allow you to retarget to them when Q4 hit and everything gonna cost more. Also try to collect the data from your customers, anything from first name, their gender. That's gonna help a lot when you try to figure out the gifting because like mom, female, they usually do a lot more gifting, so you can push more of that type content towards them. Also, like try to collect and figure out what type of products they prefer, what type gifts they're gonna give to people as well, the budget, things like that. That will allow you to segment your audience when it comes to Black Friday, Cyber Monday month. And you need to increase your frequency to compete with everyone else in the market. We would send an email or even 2 emails a day, a lot more SMS. So closer to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we send a lot more. So which means you need to segment them, the audience more, to without spamming people. You want to exclude anyone who purchased recently. You want to exclude people who are not inactive. Also, now is a great time to just try to narrow your email list to people, your super active subscribers, because that will have increased your reach when you need to open to the bigger audience. More email going to end up in inbox instead of the spam folder. Here's an example of an early access campaign. It's an Instagram ad which lead to a lead form, which people subscribe to this. You have the email, you can read, you can send them email later on, and then they get access to an early sales. So how to start Black Friday 2 months earlier? Make sure you have your support team, like everything planned out. A lot of time people spend a lot of money on advertising or email, but don't actually have a support team to handle all the sales. So make sure you figure that out, hire extra people to make sure you have people answer questions, or else your biggest campaign of the year could be the one that and your brand. So you want to make sure you don't want to ruin your reputation. A post-purchase flow is also something good to create to make sure that you can answer all the frequently asked questions. That's going to help reduce the pressure on your support team. Figure your shipping cutoff date. That will change the day of all your sales. So make sure you understand that. So last year we tried to send a gift to our client from an US brand. And then we realized that half of our clients are in Canada. So we have to pay duty and taxes, but they didn't have an option for prepaid duty taxes. So we couldn't figure out how to do that because we cannot ask our client, like, we're going to send you this gift, but you have to pay the taxes. So we actually end up going with a different brand that it was not even our first choice, not even our second choice or third choice. But because it's a Canadian brand that we could actually send to our client without that trouble. So you want to connect with, like chat with brand like Global E or any kind of third party companies that allow you to add a prepaid duty, a custom option at checkout. Because if you sell internationally, you need to make it easy for people to send gifts overseas. Also, try to avoid changing your branding or changing your website now. A lot of clients ask us to launch a new website in October or like change the entire packaging. This is not the time to do it because you spend a lot of money to build awareness. If you change it now, you're risking the chance that people are not going to recognize you and not going to purchase your products. Also, make sure everything you do is optimized for mobile. Majority of the sales are going to come from mobile. So your email, your ad, your website, everything. And lastly, make sure you have a buy now and pay later service on your website because it's allow people, like, you want people to purchase it on the spot instead of waiting until they get the paycheck and purchase it, right? In the past year, it's almost 56% of consumers have been using a buy now pay later service. So that is a 50% increase. You want to make sure you have one of those on your website. On the email checklist, September is the perfect time for you to do any split test. Figure out the best time for you to send out less about day because you're going to have a very high frequency anyways, but less the best time because you may want to send an email during the day, another reminder later on. Great time to do like resend of like email that performed well in the past in order to increase the frequency. You want to test plain text versus HTML, the short form or long form. Make sure all your custom flow pop up, discount banner reflects the sales. And especially for campaign, I would try to do like a custom template campaign that are a little bit different than your regular, so people know this is your Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaign. And so there's a lot of like, in order to like research, try to figure out what people did last year, I would like check out the following websites. Really good email. It's great. You would try to find info or what you want to do this year. They have a lot of like very, very good email design, both on the design side and technical side as well. Melt.com is amazing for you if you want to kind of figure out what people in your industry did last year. When did they launch their Black Friday, Cyber Monday? What is the offer? And what did they do with the design? Because that's going to help you map out your entire calendar, figure out to launch roughly before them. My prediction is everyone's going to launch at least a week or 2 weeks earlier compared to last year. So keep that in mind. And for SMS, Attentive have a library of a lot of templates. So if you want to start out, check out the templates. That's really, really good. Like that you can actually get like all the templates for your Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So be one of the first brand to start your sales and also capture your shopper early. You don't want to name all your sales the same. So how are you going to do that? Because if you run a 2-month long sales, no one's going to purchase right away. So the way we do it is that we try to break them down into maybe like 3 or 4 different sales. You could have a fall sales, friend and family, a pre-Black Friday, an early Black Friday, a Black Friday preview, a single day, which is November 11, have been a very successful holiday for our client in the past as well. And then, of course, you have your regular Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And a lot of people actually extended the Black Friday, Cyber Monday after the sales, if they, especially on the ad side, if they have a good cost to acquire. There's a lot of time, you want to type email to drive more sales, so you can do like teasers, early access. Make sure you give your VIP an early access treatment, especially if you usually sell out product out early. You want to make sure your favorite customers, the people who actually bring in all the money, actually have access to the inventory before everyone else. You can run daily deals, free gift. This is great to do post Black Friday, Cyber Monday as a deal. Also, free shipping is very good after the sales is over. Of course, last gen and an extension email as well. In the past 12 months, this is a type of email that works extremely well for all clients, for sales or non-sales, us versus them. I would list out everyone who you compete in the market and have an email for that. Compare why you're better than them. Price point, great for holiday gifting because everyone have a budget. Make it easy for them to shop within their budget. Gift guide. Anything like a bestseller roundup is good because especially if you have a lot of products, make it easy for people to find something to buy. And anything with social proof, press review, influencers, they do extremely well. This is very similar for ad as well, so just keep that in mind. So you kind of also want to have ad around on this topic. And of course, unique selling position and anything have to do with science-backed research. Yeah, that is one of the best performing email for us in the past year. In terms of advertising, make sure you talk to your C-suite, legal, everything. Make sure you have everything approved in advance because during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you need to move very fast. You don't have the time to wait for approval. So if your advertising campaign run very well, increase your budget by 10% if they're good. If very good, 20%. And if it's amazing, 30%. Make sure you get that budget approved way in advance so you can increase without waiting. In previous year, Meta and Google usually crash a lot during the week prior to Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That's why you need to spend a lot of your budget before, because you wait until the last week. There's a chance that you can't even run your ad. So here's some of the tips of what have worked in the past for us. Overall, video have been working very well. Overall, the best video length between 23 and 48 seconds long. The best video overall are focused on the sales, the holiday or gifting, and the more social proof, the better. Same thing on email side. We try to feature like a review on every header image in every single email. If you can include social proof anywhere on the website, email ad, include that. In terms of graphic, anything that's more straightforward, like spell out everything, make sure like you have the code on your ad, make sure that you spell out what is your offer, how everything works, make it easy for people to understand because they get a lot of noise. So you want to make everything easy, make sure that like your coupon code is automatically applied at checkout so they don't have to remember it because I always forget the code by the time I finish shopping. So interesting fact that last year, prospecting ad actually performed better than retargeting ad. So think about that. Don't just, I understand that retargeting ad is so much cheaper, but just don't focusing on that. Make sure you have a budget to actually run your prospecting ad. And what we like to do is, if you cannot launch your Black Friday, Cyber Monday ad early, make like high reward your top of funnel offer, your welcome offer in a way that it feel a little bit more holiday or more like this is special position is a special fall offer, special early Black Friday offer. That usually help a lot with the performance of the ad itself. And important, prepare multiple ad creative so you can actually swap in and out if something is not doing well. So do not launch everything out of the gate because you will need a lot of creative. Like people get tired at very fast now. So you want to run, like you have a lot of different options in case something is not working. Like try to prepare everything. Like we try to have everything done by the end of September. So the thing gonna move very, very fast. So here's a few trending type ad in the last year. Again, us versus them. Work extremely well on ad as well. Like also if you your price point is lower, you want to point out that your price point versus other people in the industry. UGC, influencer, testimonial, review, any like unique. Anything that have to do with social proof, problem, solution, the product focus, before and after as well. People love memes. So if you have do any meme, that's great. Anything like TikTok style, like we do have like the reply overlay, the point of view, like TikTok, or like anything like what is trending on TikTok, like bring that over to Meta. Work extremely well. Press header is kind of like look similar like if you screenshot like a press P. Anything short. Our client is doing like a lot of fun stuff. Just feel like entertaining to try to get people attention. ASMR. Funny fact, ugly thing works very well. So maybe try a very raw, shaky video, something that ugly. Same thing with email. It plain text works extremely well. So you also want to test that type of email. This is what have been working very well up to date. And lastly, lead form. We pushing our lead form. Even this year, we are doing that right now, heavily right now, to try to collect leads before everything starts. So make sure that let's start collecting all the leads right now. So overall, like, yes, make sure that like, even I get stressed with Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It doesn't matter how many I have been doing this for 10 years. So calm down, just focus on like try to get as much as you can. There will be a lot of things unexpected pop up left and right, and user need to play like go with the flow. Yeah, let's start your Black Friday, Cyber Monday plan now, because it's already a little bit late. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at cami@thinkrenegade.com, or just send me like a tweet on Twitter /X or a DM on Instagram. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was such a deep dive into lots of different tools. There's lots there that I was not aware of as far as like different tools for researching other folks' campaigns. I think that's a great way to do that. I've seen a few other ones. That was a new one for me. That you mentioned there, and some great information overall. We'll get into more of that later on and more in the questions as well. But thank you so much, Kemi, for sharing those insights. Next up is Ali Flowers from Klaviyo, who's going to be talking more about nurturing and building campaigns. And I think they're a great combination of topics if you're wanting to, really get out there in front with your Black Friday and Cyber Monday campaigns, and also make sure that it lasts for the long run. Ali, are you able to share your screen?
I am. If everyone can just bear with me while I get these slides pulled up.
Okay.
And we'll get started. Hopefully. All right, can everyone see in presentation mode now?
Yeah, fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you're not familiar with me or Klaviyo, Klaviyo has been a longtime app partner, integration partner of Wix. So it's first time getting to kind of join and be a part of their content, which is really exciting. I work within the Klaviyo channel team. So I actually work with a lot of folks like Cami who are doing strategy and execution on behalf of e-commerce brands. Not just during BFCM, but year round. So I've had the pleasure of having lots of conversations with different agencies and marketing specialists around how to prepare for BFCM, but most importantly, what do we do after BFCM? And so Cami gave you guys some really great insights and some strategies to execute during the busy season. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about how do we approach post BFCM. And this is a really important time. I think, as you probably got from Cami's presentation, the period for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and holiday buying overall keeps expanding, which means that the competitive season in e-commerce keeps getting larger and larger, which means for us in e-com, that's exciting because the opportunity gets bigger, but it also means that there's a greater risk and a bigger challenge to show return when the new year hits back in January. And so what I'm going to talk to you guys about is how do we segment the new customers that we acquire throughout the holiday season? And how do we make sure we are building journeys for each of these segments that can help improve a couple of metrics that are going to be really key to our business, like repeat purchase rate, as well as just our lifetime value from each of these customers that we acquire. And that's really going to be important coming out of busy seasons, regardless of the seasonality of your business. But when you come out of a big busy season where maybe your cost of acquisition has seen some slight increases, and you're now having to mitigate that and make sure that you're showing return from that, the best way to do that is through a strong segmentation strategy and building really solid journeys for your new customer cohorts. So that being said, let's talk about how we slice and dice the new customers that we acquire during this busy season. First up is we need to try to segment out those people who came to our websites or interacted with our brand and were shopping on behalf of someone else. This seems kind of like a really kind of weird cut to want to make, but it's important to make for a couple of reasons. The first reason that this is really important is that from a long-term nurture strategy perspective, people who engage with your brand to say shop for someone else, the relationship that we build with them is going to be quite different. And our lifetime value or LTV expectations for those segments of customers will be pretty different too. As you can imagine, if I'm buying a gift for my dad from like an automotive store or potentially something that's like more of his interests, that particular brand is probably not going to want to try to build a direct relationship with me or get me into their loyalty programs because it's just not product that I am interested in. So if we're working at segmenting those out, there's a few smart ways that you can do that. There is one, first and foremost, if you were able to ask at checkout, if somebody was giving a gift. Sometimes we do this because we include gift notes. Sometimes we do this because we offer gift wrap. There's also a variety of different ways you can add a custom question at checkout sometimes. So that's something to look into to see if that's something that your store can potentially accommodate. But if not, we want to just look at other data points that could indicate to us that someone has bought a gift for someone else. Another great indication is if you had a segment of your website or a page on your website that was like your gift guide section that was running during BFCM. Maybe you have like gift baskets or gift kits that you were selling that some of your new customers may have purchased. So if a new customer came in and they only purchased something from your website that was flagged as a gift item, we might assume that that particular buyer is a gift giver. Granted, we would want to pair that information with other pieces of data, like have they shopped with us before? How recently did they come to our website? Are they coming back to our website, to help us understand if that is in fact a gift giver, but it's a good indication. We might want to make that assumption. The other assumption that you can kind of look at to see if somebody is like a gift giver is if their billing address is different from their shipping address. Again, we would want to pair this with other purchase history, so we're not making this decision in a silo. But if they've only ever bought with you once and you notice that they sent the gift or they sent the product to a different location, could be a really good indication that that particular buyer was shopping for someone else. And we don't want to throw away these segments, right? Our gift giver segments can actually be quite profitable. One of the great segments that we hear about from our partners is actually if you can identify a grandparent segment. Grandma and grandpa are a great segment to come back and market to at other points during the year. So back to school is a great idea to reach that audience. But generally, other gift giving segments, we want to revisit them with one-off campaigns around Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatever's relevant to your brand. But the idea is that we don't throw them away, but we segment them out and we set different expectations, and we don't necessarily build towards the same journeys for them. So I'm going to breathe for a second. So that's slice number one. Slice number one in the new customer cohort is that we're gonna try to pull out those gift givers. And again, this is for future campaign tactics and journeys, but it's also so that we can set our expectations from a reporting standpoint and from a forecasting standpoint correctly, because we know that this audience is probably not going to purchase at the same rate or as frequently as other audiences who are buying for themselves. So then the rest of that like cohort, you might be thinking, okay, cool, Allie, we can segment out gift givers. We still have a crap load of like new customers that are just like sitting in this bucket. Who are they and what do we do with them? We have two different data types that we can use to segment those particular audiences. And I said this earlier, but the best way to a strong nurture strategy is to have a really strong segmentation strategy first. So the two data types that we segment new customers by, or that we recommend you segment your new customers by, are called descriptive and behavioral. descriptive and behavioral. They each kind of tell a different story. But one is just a little more informational when it comes to understanding intent and what this particular person's intent might be with your brand long term. And that's the behavioral data bucket. So when we look at behavioral data, there's like kind of a branching tree of like different like touch points that we have to leverage that help us build towards a segment strategy that's rooted in something called RFM. So does anybody, you guys say in the chat, maybe if you know RFM, if you're familiar with this strategy, but when we say RFM, what we're talking about is recency, frequency, and monetary value. So how recently did they purchase with you? How frequently do they regularly purchase with you? And then what are they spending with you when they're completing those purchases? So we're going to build some segments based off of that kind of core RFM principle. So when we break out behavioral data, we've got essentially two types of touch points that we're looking at. The first is an interaction. An interaction, for all intents and purposes, is just an interaction that didn't result in a purchase. But that doesn't mean that we didn't learn a lot from them while they were on our website or engaging with our brand. And so within interactions, some things that we'll want to evaluate is how recently did they come to our website? How recently have they interacted with the brand? How frequently do they come to the website? How frequently are they window shopping? And then we'll use that same kind of cut on the other side of this branching tree when we look at purchases to understand recency and frequency as they relate to purchases. And of course, we have that added layer here once they've made a purchase with your brand of that monetary value. So how much did they spend? And these kind of data points are what allow us to build these kind of 4 segments here. And we'll talk about what each segment is. There are a lot more segments than 4 that you could build the information that we just had on that previous slide. But this is really kind of like the core 4 that Klaviyo recommends you kind of look at and you really start to finesse and work with. And once you've got strong journeys for these 4 different segments, you can kind of extrapolate these out. You can cut them up and be a little more specific beyond just like these 4. But it's a good starting point. It's a good jumping off place when you're evaluating a large cohort of new customers. So the first and foremost, I would say like the biggest ones that we want to segment out, these are people you probably knew before, you may have even known before BFCM, or maybe they became a high roller during BFCM. You can kind of set up your segmentation strategy either in that I want to look holistically at all of my current customers, so the folks that were buying with me before BFCM and the folks that were buying after. But I think for our exercise here, we're going to really look at that cohort of customers that we evaluated maybe from, as Cami mentioned, all the way from September all the way through the end of the year, right? So like that's kind of the range that we're looking in. And what we'll want to define is who are our first and foremost our high rollers, who spent the most with us, who purchased like the most frequently, and who is someone who is kind of continuing to shop. So they're coming back to your website, they're showing high intent. We're going to call these our high rollers. And these are people who came into your brand. And like I said, they just immediately started spending over your average order value. So most of us have benchmarked that average order value. We know in general how much people spend with us on average throughout each season. And so we can kind of easily kind of start to build the segment around these high rollers. And when we're building journeys for these high rollers, the name of the game here is retention, right? We want to make sure that we're keeping them in this segment. We don't want to have any attrition down into lower spending or less frequent segments. So the things that we're going to focus on here is 1, personalization, right? This is the segment that has done the most with us. We know the most about them. And so we should be able to deliver the most bespoke marketing experiences to this particular group. The second thing is like, these are folks who clearly like your brand. They love what you're putting out. So they should be the first to know about new product drops. They should be the first to know about new product lines that are coming forward. The other thing that you might want to consider for future promotions going forward, if you know that this audience is going to spend with your brand, you might want to give them private shopping hours on discounts. So this is a great way if you're going to run a big discount, maybe for another busy season throughout the year, or even for BFCM next year, and you want to get them to buy with you quickly before they buy with competitors, allow them to shop with your discount early. So give them early access to that and give them some private shopping hours. The other thing that's really big here is advocacy prompts. So if you are leveraging a loyalty program, that's awesome, but we want to make sure that your high rollers are engaging with it, right? Because your loyalty program is only as good as it is utilized. So if you have points that are not going used, if you have high rollers who are spending a lot with you, but for whatever reason are not engaging with your loyalty program, we really want to start to better incorporate those prompts, because in theory, we've done our research when we're standing up our loyalty program, and it should be indicative of which segment that they fall into. So that's segment number one. We'll build journeys for high rollers because that's really important. The next segment is potential high rollers. So when we're looking at that time period, who are people who definitely shopped within that period? They probably purchased more than once. But maybe they didn't quite spend that average order value, which is interesting, right? So these are people who they were seemingly really engaged with your brand. They're purchasing frequently. They've purchased recently within this confined time period. But for whatever reason, they're not spending a whole lot with their brand. And some of the tactical opportunities that we'll need to do so that we can kind of like better target them and hopefully promote them up to that more expensive segment. First and foremost, we need to learn more about them. Why are they not spending as much as we would expect on average? And so there's a lot of work that we can do from zero and first party data gathering. If you're not familiar with zero party data, this is the information that we collect through forms and quizzes. So things that people like voluntarily just hand on over to you. So maybe we need to consider deploying quizzes on our website. There's lots of wonderful quiz partners out there for you to consider. I think it's important to kind of have a quiz strategy. So understand what information you're trying to learn before you proceed with that, but it's a great avenue. The other thing to consider is take a double click and look at the first party data that you've got, which is that behavioral data that we're observing on our website. Are there particular areas of your site that they're either not resonating with or they seem to not be venturing on into? And what can that tell us about their product preferences? The other thing here that we'll want to do is we'll want to offer loyalty incentives. This might become a cost-conscious audience for us. So how can we kind of incentivize them to move up in our loyalty program and to spend more with us? So your loyalty program can be a great avenue to do that through. The other thing here is like, as we learn more about them through that zero and first party data collection, we need to start to become hyper-personalized. And this is something too where social proof and product recommendations can become really helpful because this particular audience, if they're not spending a lot, then there is a potential that maybe they're just not quite sold yet on making big investments with your brand. And so social proof can be a really wonderful way to kind of display the value that others and people like them see within your product lines. And there's also a great opportunity for us to just show how good we are at listening and learning and getting to know this audience through personalization tactics and customization, both on our website and in our email creative. So that's another way to potentially bump these folks up into that higher spending segment. Okay, the next one here that we're going to focus and build journeys around, brand enthusiasts. So this is someone, again, they have purchased a lot or they've purchased frequently. They haven't spent at that average order value. And the other difference between like brand enthusiasts and I would say your potential high rollers excuse me, I think I just actually miscommunicated here. Our potential high rollers are someone who they have spent a large amount of money, but they haven't necessarily done so at the same rate as your high rollers. So your brand enthusiasts, kind of the opposite here. We're looking at people who have spent recently, but they are not as frequent and they are not hitting that average order value. And so we'll work on promoting related products and we maybe even consider some volume discounts for this audience. And finally, waiting for wows. These are those individuals, if we segmented out all of our gift givers and we still have some folks who only made one purchase, and they seem like they're tentative about engaging with our brand, like maybe they're coming back to the website a lot, but they're just not really making that second purchase. This is a good opportunity to focus and to try to understand what is it that they're looking for. Time-sensitive deals that basically create urgency are good tactics for this audience. And the other kind of tactic to consider here is that we may want to leverage some social proof to, again, kind of communicate the value that others see in our brand that they just haven't had the chance to realize yet. And so for each one of those audiences, we're going to create an omni-channel strategy for them to try to push them towards that second point of conversion, push them towards that higher LTV. And now because we've kind of talked about all that we know about these audiences and we know what pieces of data we've got to leverage, we kind of have the tools in our toolbox to build a really bespoke experiences. And so what we'll do is we'll use that particular information to create a complete journey like this. And so what I'll say here is we're going to talk through all of these touch points on the screen. Each one of these touch points can be leveraged for across all 4 of those segments. So you can essentially use this as your journey builder. And you can also do this for each one of those segments that we just talked about. But the creative and the incentive that you offer at each touch point will obviously be different based off of what we just discussed on the previous slide. So that being said, I'm going to first introduce the different touches that we see here. And what you'll probably notice really quickly is that there's lots of technology that's being leveraged to deliver this particular type of journey. So you'll see that we've got an ad that's mentioned here. You'll see we've got website mentions here. We have email, we have SMS, we have a quiz. All of these are things that you can add to your Wix store. There's a variety of vendors that can kind of help you do that. So like if you're already working with partners that do this well, that's awesome. But generally speaking, just want to acknowledge that like this happens across a variety of tools. So there is some element of like having a smart tech stack kind of already picked out to be able to support your post PFCM audience journeys. So that all being said, when you start deploying omni-channel strategies, one of the biggest things that you have to kind of decide on as a brand is what is your segment source of truth. Sometimes if we're using different technologies that are not well integrated together, so like maybe I've got email over here, I've got SMS with a different vendor over here, I have website personalization with another vendor over here. Sometimes as marketers, we can try to take the same parameters for each of those segments and rebuild each segment in every tool. But inevitably, because of the way data works, you're not going to pull the same audience of people when you do that. So what's important is to decide what is your segment source of truth. So whether that's your marketing automation tool, whether that's maybe you have a like a data lake or some other type of data infrastructure tool that you're leveraging where you're aggregating this information, whatever it is, we just recommend that you decide your segments are all going to pull from the same place. So wherever that is in your stack, that's awesome. Just make sure that you've agreed to what that is with the rest of your teams. And so if you know where your segments are coming from, you can deploy them across your stack. So a good example of this, we're talking on touch point 1 here, customer sees an ad. So if we have, say we're talking about our high rollers and we're targeting them through Meta or Google, most of your ad platforms will integrate with a marketing automation solution. So if you're using Klaviyo, we do integrate with Meta, Criteo, and Google. And what you can actually do is you can create audiences based off of your segments. So you can deploy that segment as an audience and target them through paid ads, which is really great. And then that customer, they'll click through hopefully on your ad because your creative was super smart and witty. They end up on your website. And maybe they land on a product page that's customized based off of the ad that they clicked on, of course. But we want to make sure that we're customizing our website in its totality for that segment in case they choose to browse elsewhere beyond just that product page. So there are a lot of website personalization tools that you can use out there. Dynamic Yield is a great one. There's a bunch of them that are available. So do your research, decide what works best for you. But what's important here is to, again, we're going to deploy the same segment from wherever our segment source of truth is to that website customization tool so that we can create a really continuous experience from I clicked on this ad, I landed on this product page, and I'm now browsing the site. And that's really important for us if we're going to increase the likelihood of conversion. In this particular journey, we're assuming that they went to other parts of our website. They didn't end up purchasing, but they still, obviously, there was an interaction. And so we capitalize on that interaction in this journey with a quiz. This is a good opportunity for somebody you just acquired during the BFCM period to try to learn more. So you can ask them questions about what types of, if you're like a apparel brand, maybe you want to learn more about their style preferences. You can put like a style guide quiz together. Great way to learn more about that particular individual. And after they would submit that quiz, you would anticipate as a shopper that you're going to get an email from the brand. And if we are doing, again, we're powering our email strategy with the same segments that we've used for our ads and for our website personalization, then our email will also be informed by that. So now we have kind of our standard email creative that's going to match whatever we're delivering to that segment, but we can also now automate and leverage the information that we're pulling from that quiz into this follow-up email. If you're using SMS, that's fantastic. SMS is an awesome tool to use. At Klaviyo, customers who use email and SMS together actually see a 5.5 times higher click rate on SMS than they do in email. But you only get that click rate if you're delivering this like journey in the way that it's intended to be done. Because at the end of the day, SMS is great for creating urgency. It's great for creating conversion, but email is still the great relationship builder. So when we think about LTV, we think about the long-term return from some of these acquisition strategies that we run during BFCM. We need to continue to build relationships, and email is kind of our best opportunity for showing our ability to learn and understand someone's needs. So we'll send them that email. It'll be really smart. They'll want to go back to the website. That brings us to touch 5. They click through on that website and they add something to cart, we're assuming here. So they add some product to a cart. Unfortunately, they either browse abandon or they cart abandon, we're assuming here. And then we're going to send them an SMS to remind them about what's in their cart. This is a great, if you're not leveraging abandoned cart flows today, I hope we all are, definitely consider setting one of those up. And if you have SMS consent for some of your audiences, like your high rollers, then that's awesome. We want to incorporate SMS into abandoned cart flow. And then we could hit them with an SMS, letting them, like, as a part of our first touch in that abandoned cart flow. And this is the perfect role for SMS to play, right? Because we've curated our creative for the segment. We've hit them with that same creative throughout each touch point in this journey. It's super smart, and it's integrated because we're leveraging a single source of truth for our segments. And then we're going to finally hit them with the crescendo of the journey, which is the SMS. And this is something that should create urgency, letting them know that there's limited stock available, letting them know that a particular deal is going to expire, and trying to get them back into that checkout experience so that you can actually secure the next sale, which is really the goal, right, is increasing repeat purchase rate. So for each of those 4 segments that we talked about on the previous slide, we're going to try to construct something like this. And as you can see, to deliver on something like this, the most important thing is your segmentation, because the entirety of this journey is contingent on delivering a really smart or on creating a really smart segmentation strategy, and then reiterating the same creative and same messages for each of those segments throughout the different tools in your stack, and making sure that those are all well integrated to your segmentation single source of truth. All right, that was a lot of talking.
You're fantastic. You hit all of the talking points. So thank you so much. I'm gonna rattle through, Morty, while you grab your questions. I'm gonna rattle through a couple of these slides. We'll send you through this deck as well. So don't worry if it's not making, or if you're not grabbing everything. So I'm going to share this screen now. Share. So on this one, we talked about a few things. These are a couple of tips for seasonal selling on Wix. First of all, just to make sure that you are aware, Ali mentioned it, but we have a Klaviyo app that allows you to do lots of things. She talked about SMX, she talked about emails, text, growing your list, conversion tools, segmenting your list, things like that. The Wix Klaviyo app allows you to do a lot of that within your Wix CMS, so do check that one out. We also talked about customer loyalty programs and building and nurturing those customer loyalty programs. We have a tool that helps you to do that within Wix. Within Wix, we also have some elements that allow you to sort of help grow your customers with referral programs, with things like discounts and free shipping or points or things like that. And we also have some elements for abandoned carts. We also have some elements for creating custom codes. So where people go to the page and they enter a code and they're able to apply that at cart. You can both use those when you're for a single product, but also for a category. And then you can apply those to things like ads, ad campaigns, social campaigns, email campaigns, all of that sort of thing as you're getting ready for your season. And you can manage those per single product, but you can also manage those within your marketing and SEO home, where you have a section that will collect all of your coupons, and you can change them to the status to active or inactive and things like that. We also have some email automation that will allow you to send welcome, thank you, and abandoned cart emails as part of your general flow. And again, we have another place that allows you to manage those in bulk, where you can see whether they're active or inactive and whether they need elements updating there. From an SEO point of view, I highly recommend thinking about the copy that you have on your website during your seasonality. So for instance, you can highlight a few products on your site and you can select them to add an info section on your site, and you can use that to add seasonal sections in bulk. So for instance, you could add something like find out more about our back to school section. And then you could add links to that. You can also add keywords into that so that when people are searching for online for your products, they're able to find that. And this will add in the section onto your product page, but it will also add H1 or H2s onto your product page as well, which allows you to demonstrate the priority to Google on search to help to solidify all of that great campaign work that you've been doing across your work. And with that, I'll send you this deck as well with all of the links to everything. And with that, we will go to the Q&A. And thanks.
Welcome to the Q&A. Thank you, everyone. First off, great job, Cami, and it was really wonderful to get an early head start on my thinking about holiday season and seasonality, because I'm one of those people who doesn't think about it until way later. Thank you, Ali, as well. By the way, on what as Crystal mentioned about coupon codes, I highly recommend you check out Wix Analytics. For example, you can track the performance of various coupon codes, and among a million other things. Like, have a dig around the Wix Analytics. There's a ton in there. With that, I want to have a conversation about service-based businesses. There's been a lot of questions about them. I don't think we really touched them too much, and I think it really does make sense. For example, one question was around the business being a soccer coaching business. So soccer season is only, I'm a football fan, so I don't know when soccer season is, but soccer season is only so long. What are some ways to curb seasonality around that? There was another question around the similar, the business was a professional development business, and they see a big spike around back to school time. What are some ways to curb seasonality, leaving aside the holiday experience, but just seasonality in terms of seasons, if you're a service-based business? Open to the floor to anybody. Ali, you want to take it first?
I'll take a stab at that. Yeah, I think so the biggest thing around seasonality is, one, understanding the different types of customers you sell to. I think there's always busy seasons in every industry, but we sell the different types of, we need to know our ICPs, and each ICP will probably have different needs throughout the year that maybe are not reflected in each customer type. So for like, if you're selling soccer lessons, there's probably like, I would imagine during summer, or when parents are like working and need kids to go to lessons throughout the day, there might be some seasonality there. But during the school year, I think great ways to try to get people, if your primary seller or ICP is like the mom and dad group, I would focus on promoting gifts throughout different times of the year, giving lessons as gifts. I think the other thing to consider is that really, and not knowing who you sell to, I would say just understand who those individuals are and try to think through on a very specific basis for each buyer that you've got. What are other opportunities during the year beyond just the busy seasons that you might be able to sell to them?
Amazing. Cami, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think it's also our opportunity for the lower season. Is a time for you to kind of building up your list and your customer base, especially on social media. Like really create a community around your audience, and then when it's the right time, you can actually targeting them with ads, with email. We do have a lot of clients on more e-commerce side with a seasonal product for sure, and like on the slower season, we do a lot of collaboration things with other brands, because that is a great way for us to tap into their customer base. Also engage with like their community as well, like give away any kind of collaboration, like a packaging, like bundle products with other brands as well, because they're still selling the products, but now you can sell like a gift certificate or gift card, something like that, with their product as well. Leverage other people customer.
Yeah, and I'll to use the soccer example, one of my kids actually goes to soccer classes from September through June. And what they actually do is the coach, while he's doing this big group thing in the fall and whatever it is through the winter. I live in the desert, it's hot here all the time, so we can run through the winter. In the off season, they do like special clinics, they run private lessons. So, you know, it definitely pays to get a little bit creative. It's very similar in SEO, by the way, to like link building. How do I build links if I'm a gas station? My website is running gas. How am I supposed to build links? Well, look at traffic patterns, and you can, you know, put data about traffic patterns to get links that way. It's very similar to my mind, the way you would deal with seasonality if you're that kind of service business. You get a little bit creative in what you offer and how you offer it. There's often more opportunities than you might particularly think.
Agreed. I think things like ebooks, things like special, like open days, free taster sessions, things like that can really drive similar, get you similar results that you would from a standard e-commerce offering.
This one is about the RFM method. I'm sorry, I know the RFM method, but how could this be implemented? It does require the tracking of individual data to some extent to further segment into RFMs. What are the steps to put this into motion on an e-commerce website?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I would say all the segmentation that I was referring to, you can do a lot of that segmentation inside the Klaviyo app. So certainly check out Klaviyo if you've not used it before. Anybody from Wix team might be able to provide some more context on how you can do that directly in Wix. But yeah, I would say check out, and even if you're using other marketing automation tools, most marketing automation tools have some segmentation features and functionality that should allow you to build the segments through the RFM model.
Awesome. Okay. Here's another follow-up question. Do you have any suggestions on learning more about your customer base aside from surveys, which can become tedious for clients? And by the way, some brands don't let you do surveys if you're a bigger brand, which is a complication. That's been a topic we've been discussing, a small business that isn't at the size of a discussion group. And by the way, P.S., Arizona for my son's soccer? No, not Arizona, but that is also a desert.
I think one of the things is like actually pick up the phone and call some of your best customers. Like in Klaviyo, you can kind of segment that, like to get like your top 1% customer, and even like a 15-minute call with them that would really, or even send them out an email asking them, because you usually get very, very good feedback about your brand. And I recommend that to all my clients, at least in the beginning, like every year, like do that with like your top 10 or top 15 customer, because they usually give you the insight that you're probably going to spend a lot of money to learn. It's going to save you a ton of time, for sure. I think social is also like a casual way for you kind of do a survey without actually doing a survey. So if you have a social following, like maybe try to do a poll and thing. Also within Klaviyo, what you could do is that you can have multiple CTA, and also you can kind of do a split test to see where people click on and collect those data. So it's kind of an informal survey that allows you to collect data and tag those people with all the information that you collect.
Yeah. I would also say if you can't run a quiz, if your brand, it doesn't accommodate like, running like a hair care quiz or something on your homepage where you can learn more about your audiences, consider the questions that you're putting in your review requests. A lot of different reviews tools will allow you to ask custom questions. And if you have somebody who's willing to give you feedback on a product, it's a great opportunity to learn more about them. And so consider what you're asking in those review requests and see if there's not a creative way that you can learn more through that engagement as well.
From an SEO,
sorry, I just have something. It's also you can get all your review from the Amazon or your website and run that to an AI to collect information, but based on the keyword as well.
Absolutely. I was going to say that things like Amazon reviews, your Google Business Profile reviews, as well as something called People Also Ask, which shows on the SERP on Google, will give you the kinds of questions that people are asking about your brand or even about a specific topic. So if it was a shampoo, then you would enter the brand of the shampoo, and it would give you the list of questions that people have about that shampoo and the different answers and things like that.
Yeah, and there's a great freemium tool around that called Also Ask at alsoask.com, and you can plug in your keyword and it'll give you all the questions people are asking on Google related to that. So definitely check that out. And I think we're actually out of time, which is amazing.
We covered so much, and as Cami was saying at the beginning, there's still so much to cover. I didn't even get like scratch the surface on the things you can do in Wix, and Ali, I'm sure you didn't get to all of the amazing things that are involved with you with those processes. But thank you both so much, and yeah, thank you for sharing so much knowledge.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
See you next month at our next webinar.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.